Okay, well, this is the place where I'm supposed to, and I've never even been able to use this, so I'm going to use it one time. That is the end of my time as your chair, and I am excited to hand the gavel to my friend, my colleague, Dave Kern from the city of Chicago. So please welcome him and look forward to an amazing year with you.
All right. So this was a really tough set of talking points to write, given everything that's been going on in the world and in our lives over the last few days. So before I begin, before the slides come up, I need a moment with Beth. So I've known you for almost 17 years. We've worked together at least 9 of those years in different organizations. We've shared plenty of time together as work colleagues and as friends. We've shared our families together. We've engaged in countless late night conversations with a drink or 2 or 3 or a bottle. You've been a consistent and beautiful part of my life. Oh, well, damn it. We spoiled it. Hold on. Don't look. Don't look. Don't look. Don't look. Don't look. Oh, okay, wait. Look. Look. So you've been a sounding board, a trusted colleague, and a dear friend. And as thanks, I've pulled together some of the most flattering photos of us to help us remember our moments together. Do you remember the house?
I do. Oh my gosh, I do remember the house. Yes. Dave picked out my house when I moved to Olympia, Washington, because I was still in Maryland.
In Maryland. So I moved from DC to Washington State 6 months before Beth, and she and Laura reached out and said, we need help finding a house. And they sent me listings, and I went to look at several houses, some of which were, you wouldn't want to take a black light into them. The DNA was everywhere, it was nasty. But we found this beautiful house, and you and your family lived there for the first 3 years that you were there. So as you step into your new role as immediate past chair, can you reflect just for a minute on what this experience has meant to you?
I think it has meant a lot of things for me, because I really started my career with NASTAD in 2004 as a staff person. And being around this hollow square and having these name plates and having these roles and responsibilities was somewhat mystical to me as a staff person. And, you know, pretty much everything we did revolved around the board and revolved around the membership. And I loved that work. And that work changed the trajectory of my career forever. And then I left because I needed to get out of the concrete jungle and have some green space. And I also needed to understand, what is it state health departments do? Because I worked for NASTAD and provided technical assistance for state health departments, but I had never worked in state government. So I took a chance at that experience and did not believe it would bring me back here. But I love state government, and I have found a place there that without NASTAD, I would never have known existed. So being able to remove some of the mystique about this process has been nice. We're just regular folks trying to get really hard work done, and we're not perfect. And we make a lot of mistakes, and yet we stay in it. And I have been appreciative of being able to play that role, but my imperfect self.
Thank you. Beth, BCP, Betsy, if you've been around after 1, 2, or 3 drinks. Thank you. I love you. thank you for their grace, humility, and everything that you brought to this time. And as a parting gift, I'm giving you the entire bottle virtually, since you can't carry it on the plane. May your glass always be half full and ever replenished.
Thank you.
So let's give Beth, our outgoing chair, a round of applause. And let's give our outgoing board members, Marlene, Ali, Katie, Jacqueline, Randy, and Ricardo, another round of applause. And congratulations to the new board members and officers. Scott, shout out to you for having a Chicago flag behind you in your picture. I appreciated that. I look forward to working with all of you this year. And I'd also like to take a minute to thank the NASTAD chairs that came before Beth and me, who still sit among us in this membership. I want to thank you for the important influence, leadership, and steady hand you provided this organization over the years. We have Lifetime Achievement Award winner Randy Mayer, Don Fukuda, who couldn't join us this year, Andrew Gans, Jacqueline Clymore, and Marlene. Thank you. Thanks to each of you for the important contributions you made to NASTAD that helped shape the organization that it is today, to become what it is today. And finally, I'd like to thank the membership for entrusting me in this role for the next year. And I'm really excited and humbled to work with you and do work together. For those of you who are new to NASTAD or don't know much about me, I'm currently the Deputy Commissioner with the Syndemic Infectious Disease Bureau with the Chicago Department of Public Health, where my team and I provide support to our city's HIV, STI, monkeypox, viral hepatitis, and TB programs. I got my start in HIV work in Chicago in the late 1990s and was hired by the Chicago Department of Public Health for the first time in 2000 in the Office of LGBT Health. And I eventually moved into the role of Prevention Director for the city. While in that role, I attended my first in-person NASTAD prevention meeting in 2004 or 2005, way before the mega meetings of today. And I was so impressed with the quality of the content and the connections that I made. It was eye-opening to know that I wasn't alone in the work that I was doing. So in 2006, I moved from Chicago to take a position with NASTAD as Prevention Director, supporting the organization's work in HIV and hepatitis prevention, and later as Director of Strategic Initiatives. Our phenomenal Deputy Executive Director, Natalie Kramer, started at the same time I did, and Beth also worked there at the time, leading our CARE and ADAP team. We learned a lot together and did some really great work. Before there was a national HIV/AIDS strategy, we created the first national HIV prevention blueprint and launched the first national HIV prevention inventory in partnership with the Kaiser Family Foundation. In 2010, I moved to Washington State Department of Health to lead the state's infectious disease prevention programming, including HIV, viral hepatitis, and STI. And Beth and I had the opportunity to work together there too. And I also got to work with Lydia Guy-Ortiz, also a NASTAD member from Washington. And I finally moved back to Chicago in 2016 to take on my current role. So together, these experiences have given me an important perspective on the work from a local, state, and national level. And while I've moved around quite a lot in my career, NASTAD has always been a consistent presence in my professional life. I literally grew up professionally in this organization, and today feels like I've come full circle. So again, thank you for trusting me to take on this position over the next year. So I'm excited to talk about my chair's challenge, access, engage, and activate. And I'm revising it to say centering and recentering key populations. I had a whole speech written before I got to DC, calling on us as a membership to do more, to stop being distracted, and to claim the power of the roughly $3 billion that our programs collectively manage. $3 billion in investments we manage in this room. I was ready to call the charge. But over the last few days, having heard many of you, talked with several of you, and even teared up with a few of you, I honestly struggle to ask you as health departments to do more right now. Because our work matters, I will ask this of you in a minute. And I know you'll take it up because that's who you are. Leaders who always want to do better, despite the constraints we're experiencing. But before moving into those asks, I want us to take a minute to recenter the conversation on us, NASTAD members and our teams. Some of us are really tired. Some of us are deflated, and at times some of us are just overwhelmed. I needed to name this because it's been palpably present in this room since the annual meeting started. So raise your hands if you're feeling or have recently felt tired, deflated, overwhelmed. Now keep your hands up if, despite this, you still feel inspired at times to do more, to do better for the communities that you serve, to take steps despite being overwhelmed, to make changes that improve people's lives. See, this is beauty right here in this room. The beauty of who you are as leaders. I'm tired, but I'm still pushing. I was talking with Jacqueline on Monday during breakfast, and we agreed that the world we're living in right now feels slightly reminiscent of the early days of HIV in some ways. During a time when we didn't know what to do, but felt compelled to do something. With the attacks we're experiencing against social, racial, gender, and identity justice, and with many of those attacks successfully stripping hard-won rights from our communities and our families, and then having to live with a sense of dread of what's next, and not know what to do, it makes us feel hopeless. And then taken together, the difficulties we face to just do our jobs, even in the most progressive jurisdictions, and the forward assault on the people we care about, taking away rights or criminalizing lives, taken together and not knowing how to stop it before it harms again. No wonder some of us are tired, deflated, and overwhelmed. And yet, still we persist because of who we are as leaders. While we don't have an easy solution, we do have history and experience. What did we do in the early days when we didn't know what to do? We fought back. I wish I had a more elegant solution to work with right now, but we do know what to do, and we know what needs to be done. We have to fight back, and we have to fight back for those who can't fight back for themselves. And at the same time, we must summon the willpower to take care of ourselves and each other as much as we can, as hard as that may be. So I need you to take a moment. If you're a hugger or a hand squeezer or a back patter or a head nodder, show the person next to you some love. Show them love. Let them know that you understand. No, I pulled it off your Facebook page. You can let them know you have love and they don't need to explain a damn thing or provide any context, because you really understand what they're experiencing because you are experiencing it too. Take that moment to give your colleagues love, empathy, and warmth whenever you can. We need it more now than ever. See, this is one of the hidden powers of NASTAD that no one tells you about until you experience it. And this is something that is always available to us. You walk into this room, you hop on that call, and you know people know. You know you can just jump in and start releasing the stuff you're dealing with, the challenges you're having with hiring, with retention, with contracts, with project officers, with bureaucracy, with politics. When you enter these spaces, you are with a group that understands intellectually and feels emotionally what you're experiencing. For our new members, I hope you've had a chance to experience this over the last few days. It literally is one of the most beautiful and consequential parts of being a NASTAD member. So my first chair's challenge is to you, Stephen, and the NASTAD team. We need the organization to continue centering us, the membership, and help us take care of ourselves and one another better. And how lucky are we as an organization to have an organizational excellence priority already? Isaiah, we need your compassion and brilliance to help us. We also need NASTAD to dig into some of the less sexy challenges that we're facing, like administrative preparedness, hiring, contracts. We know that each health department is unique, but I suspect there are tips and tricks that can be shared that will make an important difference to many of us. Like Marlene, how did you hire all those temps? Can you help me, please? But seriously, this is one of the most significant challenges we're facing right now. And if we don't take some of the pressure off, we're absolutely limited in what we can do to center and recenter the people we serve. So now let's talk about the people and where we must do better to end the epidemics and to honor our moral obligation as public health servants to ensure members of our communities are appropriately protected and cared for. These are different, but I believe we hold responsibility for both as we work to center and recenter key populations. So today for my chair's challenge, I'm uplifting and asking us to center or recenter 4 groups: gay, bisexual, and other same-gender loving men, Black and Latino men in particular, persons aging with HIV, persons who use drugs, and persons of transgender experience. I'm going to share my sincere appreciation with the NASTAD team for helping make my chair's challenge really come to life over the last few days by focusing on some of these populations. Over and over, we heard a call for whole person approaches, for engaging populations with humility and long-term commitments, for focusing beyond HIV and hepatitis, and for being okay sitting in places of discomfort. I also want to remind us that syndemic approaches marry very well with the centering and recentering of key populations, given that syndemic approaches strive to address the impact caused by infectious disease, drug use, and mental health, and at the same time, the social determinants of health that put these populations at increased vulnerability for poor health outcomes. So I'll start with persons of trans experience. Our transgender communities are under attack in many parts of our country. An overt, shameless, and very personal attack. Politicians in certain parts of the country are trying to erase trans people. I wish there were a concise challenge that I could put out to our membership, but there's not. This is going to be a fight, and this fight must be fought on all levels. As individual human beings in this room, not necessarily health department employees, I call on you to learn as much as you can about our trans and non-gender binary communities if you don't know enough. I call on you to take every opportunity to educate others about trans lives. I call on you to advocate against anti-trans legislation and policy. I call on you to convince as many people as you can that what is being done to trans people is cruel and wrong. And I call on you to vote and to get out the vote. As health departments, there are many low threshold actions that we can take, some suggested by Dr. Lett yesterday. Engage trans communities by convening town hall style meetings and listen and learn. With that learning, partner to create solutions. Begin or continue to use gender affirming language in your formal and informal communications. Begin or continue to create gender affirming workplaces. Find opportunities to engage trans youth by paying them to be liaisons to their communities. Create safe mechanisms for input, like digital suggestion boxes. assess and make available to the trans community institutions that are trans affirming, like substance use disorder treatment and housing facilities. And as Randy said the other night, fight within your organizations to do what's right. As NASTAD, the organization, you're already on it. So I support the completion of the anti-trans legislation policy statement that you're working on and the trans health policy document. Share those widely and build follow-on engagement and activities to ensure their messages are seen and heeded. Second, I believe we need to re-envision our commitment to persons who use drugs, including injection drugs. In many of our jurisdictions, we have long-standing programs that have saved countless lives over the years, but I believe we must do more. I call on members who can to explore opportunities to advance comprehensive systems of care in our jurisdictions that provide clean needles and syringes and naloxone, but also integrated medical and behavioral health care. And if you can, grab some of that opioid settlement money and use it to innovate. I know that some states and cities can do very little, if anything, because of political barriers. So continue to do what you can through programs that are flexible, like prevention, care, and housing. And I call upon health departments to carefully review the National HCV Elimination Plan. We may be closer than we've ever been to getting this done. Figure out what you can do now and ready your systems for implementation. Jump on this now. And for jurisdictions with sufficient means, I call on you to push limits and innovate in this space so the field continues to learn and grow. For NASTAD, continue to keep your eye on what Congress does with this national plan and advocate for the essential role of health departments in the response, and continue to provide strong national leadership in drug user health with an emphasis on the work of health departments so we can strengthen and optimize our state and local responses and investments. Third, as we discussed a lot during this meeting, I call on us to center individuals who are aging with HIV. We need to think forward about the systems of care and support individuals are going to need through end of natural life. Programs like Ryan White have wrapped arms around our communities, and we can't allow their future to include later life care that doesn't honor their dignity and identity. We must ensure communities receive compassionate and appropriate later life services like assisted living, skilled nursing care, and other long-term care. And we must address the non-HIV clinical aspects of aging, like hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, mobility and other geriatric conditions, and psychosocial concerns, including isolation and depression. We've made meaningful and in some cases life-saving differences for people with HIV over the years. So we must get this right for our sisters and brothers aging with HIV. As members, I call upon us to create mechanisms to actively and routinely engage individuals aging with HIV so we can intentionally listen to the community's evolving needs, including, but not limited to HIV, and take action to address needs directly or through influencing other systems in our cities and states. For issues that are beyond our local control, I ask members to raise these issues to NASTAD so we can explore solutions collectively at the national level. We heard from HRSA and other federal partners that HIV and aging is on their radar, so our input is critical and timely. To that end, I call upon NASTAD to identify someone on your team to be the point person for HIV and aging, so members have a go-to if they have ideas, questions, or challenges. And further, I call on NASTAD to convene a national HIV and aging consultation in the next year that brings together experts in elder care, healthcare, public health, community services, advocacy, and individuals with lived experience to develop recommendations on this topic, including some of those raised by our panelists yesterday, such as provider trainings, geriatric screenings, and balancing HIV with other healthcare needs. And finally, we must recenter gay, bisexual, and other same-gender loving men in our syndemic infectious disease responses. The recent Mpox outbreak, continuing primary and secondary syphilis burden, periodic outbreaks of Shigella and hepatitis A, and more call on us to approach engagement of services for this community using a syndemic whole person framework. This population seems obvious, but when you look at national, state, and local statistics, we're not making the difference that we need to. These men continue to be on the leading edge of the HIV epidemic as they have been for decades, today still representing 7 of 10 new HIV diagnoses nationally. We won't end the HIV epidemic if we don't accelerate reduction in HIV transmission in this population, period, full stop, particularly among Black and Latino men. And I would suggest if we are successful in meaningfully reducing transmission in these groups, that alone may be enough to turn the tide on the epidemic overall. I know we all have programs that serve this population, and we have for a long time. So I'm calling on us to do an honest assessment of our current programs. I'd like us all to ask and answer a few questions. Is funding following the epidemic, and is enough funding reaching gay, bisexual, and same-gender loving men, particularly Black and Latino men? If not, what can we do to change this? Our programs we're funding now actually achieving what we need them to: diagnosing undiagnosed infection, re-engaging people with HIV in care, providing care and treatment to the point of durable viral suppression and sustained PrEP use. If they're not, what can we do to change this? Are we seizing opportunities to offer whole person engagement of gay, bisexual, and same-gender loving men, like integrating testing for other syndemic infectious diseases in our HIV testing program, coupling PrEP screening and rapid start with Mpox vaccinations, and ensuring all Ryan White medical providers are providing screening for other STIs, Hep B, Hep C, and TB, and vaccinating for Mpox, Hep B, and HPV? If not, what can we do to change this? And finally, do we have mechanisms in place to actively and routinely engage members of the gay, bisexual, and same-gender loving community, not just during times of public health crisis, and not just through formulaic community planning groups? If we don't, what can we do to change this? I know we're all tired, but I believe we can begin to make incremental changes for this population that will be meaningful, and frankly, we must. For NASTAD, the membership depends on you to continue advocating for federal policy that supports work with gay, bisexual, and same-gender loving men, like a national PrEP program or other federal commitments to scale up PrEP uptake. Your continued advocacy for funding to address connected conditions of housing instability, homelessness, mental health challenges, and drug use among these men. And frankly, keeping the crazy out of legislation whenever you can. We also depend on you, the NASTAD team, to carry our messages to federal leadership across HHS and HUD as they explore ways to take a syndemic approach to infectious diseases, drug use, and mental health. We know funders will be expanding their focus on integrated service models, so let's work together now as a membership to influence what this looks like. And for the board, I want us to re-engage the board of the National Coalition of STD Directors to work together to advocate for sensible legislation, responsive notice of funding opportunities, and to promote broader sexual health frameworks in our work with gay, bisexual, and same-gender loving men. So that's it. Easy peasy, right? So none of us can take all of this on, and that's okay. I know support differs in jurisdictions, and I know some of you are having a hell of a time right now. So do what you can and let that be known so we can celebrate what you've done, whatever that is. So to close, I want to share an image of some public art in Chicago. It's called "You Are Beautiful." We see these words all over the city. Something like 3 million stickers were printed and subsequently made it onto flat surfaces everywhere. And there are massive art installations like this, tens of feet long, peppered throughout the city. The movement was started as an artist's attempt to feel more at home when he first moved to Chicago. And it is really beautiful and means a lot when you happen upon these 3 words on days when you're feeling particularly crummy or just mediocre. So I want all of us to feel at home with one another. I want you to know that I think you are beautiful. Say it to yourself. Say it to your neighbor. You all are beautiful. So thank you for everything that you do, and I look forward to working together this year, and I wish us all safe travels home.
I have to take a moment to absorb and reflect. Thank you, Dave. Thank you for the charge that you've made to the membership. Thank you for the charge that you've made to the NASTAD as an organization and NASTAD team. we hear you, and I think everything you've articulated here fits very nicely with our priorities as an organization. The one piece I would add is that we will continue to infuse this lens to everything articulated here. I'm going to get a different. Thank you. As we're pulling to a close, I do want to invite the members, all of the members that are here, board members and other members who are here, and staff to meet on the terrace so that we can do a photo. I don't think we've had a chance to do a member/staff photo in the 3 or 4 days that we've been together. So let's try to do that before we disperse. Just a sincere thank you again, not just to the membership, to the staff and who planned and prepared both the agenda, but also to staff who prepared and led various sessions, to our logistics and admin team for the meeting, just the great flow of the travel and logistics of the meeting. And of course, thanks to all of you for your engagement, really focused engagement and encouraging engagement during the past few days. And congratulations to my new bosses as the board of directors and executive team of the organization. I guess I should say congratulations to me. Sincere thank you. Safe travels back to home if you're hanging around. Enjoy DC. The weather is absolutely perfect right now in DC, so enjoy walking around and taking advantage of our beautiful the great city of DC, reflecting our colleague Susan, our colleague in Alaska. And so with that, I will bring this meeting to a close.